So it looks like the music industry is rebounding. Now it saw its fastest growth in 23 years in 2017 last year. Recorded music sales in the U.S. reached nearly $9 billion. But don't expect to see a Sam Goody pop up in your neighborhood anytime soon. Here to break it down for us is Stephen Witt, author of How Music Got Free. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So the streaming services are boosting revenue here, but still 40% below the peak levels. I mean, how do we get back to what it was years ago?
It's not going to happen. They'll never reach the heights that they had in the kind of peak era of the CD boom, even if they pass 100 million subscribers in the United States, which they will soon. On the other hand, it is growing for the first time in a long time, and it's really growing fast. So they've got to be happy about that. We're still about the size that we were in 2008, and that's not even accounting for inflation. But, you know, it's a light at the end of the tunnel. The really painful part is over.
So, Stephen, more than 70 million people now pay for Spotify at an average of about $5 a month to access 35 million songs. But the company is not profitable. I mean, they are still losing money. How is this sustainable? I mean, how are some of these we've seen iHeartRadio just filed for bankruptcy not too long ago. We've seen so many of these music streaming companies go under. What would be different about Spotify? Is it something that they're doing right that the other companies had gotten wrong?
Yeah, they're the incumbent. That's their power. The key thing to understand is the longer someone subscribes to Spotify, the more profitable of a user they become. So I've been there for 5 or 6 years. It costs them almost nothing to maintain me as a user. I'm extremely profitable for them. They're taking all of that cash flow that their user base has generated and reinvesting it into rapidly acquiring new users in an attempt to corner the market. So the reason that they're not profitable is they're trying to build a monopoly. And when you do that, profits are a secondary concern.
Hey, Stephen, Pross here. I was a little surprised to see that nearly 30% of sales are still physical and digital downloads of albums. Do you see that going anywhere? Is that something that's going to stick around or just go away?
I see it going down. They're dropping about 30 or 40% a year. It's going to dwindle away till almost nothing. I think locally stored files are finished totally, and the physical market will dwindle away to essentially a hobbyist's market of vinyl and a few compact discs.
And Stephen, what does this mean for artists? I mean, we saw Taylor Swift, she boycotted Spotify there for a while. So what does this mean for them? I mean, how are they
broke her in the end.
So what does this mean for the artists? Like, I mean, it's really cutting into the amount of money that they could make.
Kind of. Ultimately, they'll make a little less than they did in, say, 1998, but they'll make more than they did in 2008. So they sort of have to play along. Artistically, it has a big effect. Mostly people listen to playlists and they listen to singles. They're not so interested in kind of the classic album release cycle anymore. And as physical goes away, as digital downloads go away, the album really ceases to matter. So it's entirely a new mode of creative production that the artists are going to have to adapt to, and some of them won't like it at all.
And Stephen, you've been tracking the music industry here for years. You've seen a lot of these streaming giant players come into the market, then leave. Where do you see the future going in this industry? Do you think we'll continue to see some of these smaller startup type companies be able to compete with Spotify when, like you said, they're cornering this part of the market?
No, they won't be able to compete. It's too late. It's really going to be Spotify and maybe a couple major tech players. You know, anybody can start one of these things, right? It's not that hard to charge $10 a month for some songs. The difficulty is in building an enormous trove of users. Spotify functions a little bit like Facebook. It's kind of a natural monopoly. The more people who are on it, the more valuable it becomes. So if you're starting one today, there's almost no chance for you to win.